Welcome to our study of Charlemagne. Welcome to my personal home office, where, as you see, I have many leather-bound books and an apartment that smells of rich mahogany. Yes, I do watch some movies. However, today we are moving on from the early German kingdom, conversion, monasticism, to the time of Charlemagne. Now, Charlemagne represents this brief time of light in the Dark Ages, if we can call it that. So some people will often consider the Dark Ages going from the end of Rome in the year 500 AD until 800 AD, so 300 years of Dark Ages. Then, around 850, there's kind of another Dark Age when the Viking invasions sweep through Europe. So that period from 800 to 850 AD forms a little bit of a pause. Now, what's going on then, you're asking? Well, very simply, Charlemagne becomes the Holy Roman Emperor. So let's have a little background in what we're talking about. If you remember, we left off where Clovis became king of the Franks. The Franks were one of these Germanic peoples who had invaded the Holy Roman Empire. They had taken over the Roman Empire, destroyed it really, and then you had the Franks settling in Gaul, present-day France. Now, eventually, one of these Franks, Clovis, as a Germanic warrior and king, gained enough power and enough success that he could declare himself king over all of the Franks. Clovis, as you know, converted to Christianity, and he founded what is known as the Merovingian dynasty. The Merovingians were the first dynasty of French kings, and they last for almost 300 years, which isn't really that bad. The Merovingians are on the throne of France from about 450 to 750. Again, remember, they're not kings of France, the place, they are kings of the Franks, because you are king of a people, you are not king of dirt if you are a German. This time of the Merovingian rule was the story of the spread of monasticism, monks living in community, and the story of the conversion of German tribes to Christianity. Now, the Franks and the Merovingians in general had a lot of success, but they also have a lot of weakness. Those Frankish kings, those Merovingian kings, find it very hard to control the nobles. They are not absolute kings. Their power is very, very limited. Well, one of the problems is they stopped fighting. It's almost like the Merovingian kings enjoyed being kings so much, they stopped fighting. That's a problem, because if you stop fighting, you lose respect. What's more, if you're not fighting, you're not winning loot, so you can't reward your followers, so your followers won't be loyal to you. And remember, good kings fight and reward their followers. The Merovingians were not doing that. So Clovis's successors gradually and slowly start to lose power. The real power starts to fall away from the kings, and it becomes held by the major domos. The major domos were what is called the mayor of the palace. It's where we get our word mayor from, like the mayor of the city of Albany. The mayor is the head. So major or mayor, domo, domus is the Latin word for house, head of the house. Now, the major domo was kind of the king's second in command, the head of the royal household. Well, over time, the major domos notice that the kings are becoming weak, and they start getting more power for themselves. Then they get ambitious. They start thinking, hey, maybe we should be king. Maybe that would be better. The most important of these major domos is a fellow by the name of Charles Martel. That name might sound familiar. Charles Martel. Charles Martel was the Frankish warrior who had stopped the Muslim invasion into France at the Battle of Tours. Charles Martel, from this victory, got the nickname Martel, meaning the hammer. Charles the Hammer. Good nickname. Now, he was the major domo in the early 700s AD. He does start to fight. And what's more, he keeps fighting. So while the kings are busy sitting on their thrones and not doing anything, Charles Martel is going to war. This means he's getting the honor, he's getting the glory, and he's getting the loot, and he's rewarding followers, which means people are starting to be loyal to Charles Martel and not loyal to the king. It gets to the point where Charles Martel and the major domos, the mayors of the palace, the king's second in command, are the ones who actually have the real power. Now, Charles Martel doesn't try to make trouble while he's alive, but after he dies, his son, Pepin the Short, that's just not as good a nickname as the Hammer. But apparently he was really short, so his son, Pepin the Short, gets tired of having power. Oh no, he likes having power. But he's like, if I have power, I want to get to be king too. So he writes to the Pope, because you can't just kill a king or overthrow a king. You need to make it legitimate. So he writes to the Pope and he says, Your Holiness, I've been thinking, is it really right that the person who has all the power of the king, meaning himself, should not actually be king? That doesn't seem right, does it, Pope, sir? Now, the Pope understands exactly what he's asking. The Pope, Pope Zacharias, understands that Pepin the Short is asking for permission to take over as king. And so the Pope writes back, yes, you're right. It really doesn't make sense that, it really does make sense that whoever has the power should actually be king. Yes, that is absolutely 100% right. Well, this letter gets to Pepin. He says, Pope has given me permission. He proceeds to overthrow the last Merovingian king. He doesn't kill him, interestingly. He shaves his head to make him look like a monk, and then he makes him become a monk in a monastery. So it was interesting that he didn't kill him. So maybe some sort of change there that's interesting. But this is the end of the Merovingian king and the beginning of a new dynasty.